Okay, I wanted to discuss this aspect here, and what we're going to talk about today is classical martial art training. And I never studied a traditional karate system, and really, I was more of a JKD person before I studied Wing Chun. So it was Jeet Kune Do, non-traditional martial arts that led me to Wing Chun. Filipino martial arts, as I learned it, is non-traditional, and we were always considered non-traditional until maybe 2002 or 2000, something like that, when MMA really exploded and took off. Traditional martial arts took a beating, and martial arts like JKD and Filipino martial arts got classified newly as traditional martial arts. Before that, we were always considered non-traditional in training. Now, Wing Chun, on the other hand, it was not mainstream. Nice flash of lightning. It was not mainstream by any stretch of the imagination back then, and it probably really isn't even now. Um, but it is and always has been a traditional martial art for the purposes of this discussion. And I think everyone would agree on that now. Um, when you start to talk about non traditional martial arts or MMA, right, which is, you know, it could be a mixture of different traditional martial arts taught in a non systematic way. It could be boxing, wrestling, jujitsu, and Muay Thai mixed together. It could be Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu mixed together, and that would be classified as MMA. Now, at an MMA school, you might have a Jiu-Jitsu instructor who teaches Jiu-Jitsu and a Muay Thai guy who teaches Muay Thai, or you might have a kickboxer and a grappler, and they'll call that MMA, which is fine. It is. Um, from my perspective, Jeet Kune Do was MMA already before MMA existed, because my JKD instructor, Larry Hartzell and Dan Inosanto, taught us grappling. They taught us boxing. They taught us Wing Chun, and they taught us Muay Thai. So Muay Thai was always a huge part of my training from the beginning. My first month in in the JKD curriculum, probably I met my Thai boxing instructor, who came from Los Angeles and did a 2-day seminar, about 8 hours a day, maybe 9. And it was Muay Thai, really, really tough, really simple and basic, but really, really tough he was. And it was Muay Thai. And about a month after that, I had a Wing Chun master come and teach a Wing Chun seminar, and that was very traditional Wing Chun. That was Master Francis Fong. About a month or so later, maybe 2 months, we had a guy come named Dan Inosanto, and he taught a seminar on Jeet Kune Do. And in that mix, he was teaching a lot of Muay Thai, and he was also teaching Filipino martial arts. And newly introduced, what I was told at the time, was this Silat, Buki Nagara Silat, I think is what he was calling it then, or he called it Sikal, which is Silat and Kali mixed together. And maybe even in that first year, A month later, Larry Hartzell, Seafood Larry, came in and he did a seminar, and that was on grappling. And really, a lot of boxing in that, a little bit of kicking too, more savate than Muay Thai, but it was another huge flash of lightning. And what we did there was, I would just call it tricks. He taught us techniques to use if someone grabbed you here or there, or someone took you down. We didn't really do on the ground grappling all that much. We did some takedowns, and we'd do a couple of finishing moves, is what they were called. And that was in 1986. That's the way it was taught to me. And we did some kunzis, some standing lock flows at that time period. And I think he would do a maybe 12 or 14 lock flow. And his lock flow was different than Sifu Dan's. But it had all the same locks. It just had a different progression. Maybe a little bit more finger lock or two here or there. And so that was my introduction to martial arts. And so that was considered non-traditional. We would make fun of karate and taekwondo. For all I knew, karate and taekwondo were the same damn thing back then. And when I found my JKD instructor, I was really looking for a I was looking for a karate or taekwondo school. And what had happened was, me and a buddy of mine, we worked together. We worked at some apartments in Garland, Texas, and that apartment complex was enormous. It had its own recreational center, a racquetball club. Back then, racquetball was pretty popular. It had a basketball court, and it had aerobics. And in that aerobics room, there was a karate class, and it was free to employees. So me and my buddy, we decided we're going to go take karate. And since there was one that was right there on the site where we worked, we could literally get off work and go right to this place and train. I think it started at 6 and we got off at probably 5. So really convenient. We went there. I actually gone and bought a gi and some belts, and we went there, and much to my chagrin, nobody there wore a gi. Some people wore karate pants, but it was a t-shirt and sweatpants, or a t-shirt and jeans, or a t-shirt and karate pants. It was probably the most of the people attending that class were karate people who had heard about this thing called Jeet Kune Do, and they wanted to train in that because there was no forms. Pardon me, I'm getting a dry throat. So there were no forms, and that attracted a lot of people, because back then in karate, you basically had forms and you had sparring, and the sparring ended up looking nothing like the forms. And they did tournaments, and they did self-defense techniques. And probably, according to what people told me, you would go to the karate school, you would practice forms, you would do stretching and warm-ups. We would call them field drills from like the military, jumping jacks, 4-count burpees, squat thrusts, that kind of stuff. You do that for about 45 minutes, and then you would learn a few techniques, maybe 2 or 3 at the most. That was class, and that's how it went. And so this JKD thing, you came in, it was all, we did jump rope, I think 10 minutes of that, and then we would stretch for 10 minutes or so, and then we would go right into boxing. Then we would go right into learning what they called application. which was technically a dry fire, focus glove training, and or some sparring. Not a lot of contact sparring. Maybe once a week we would do contact sparring, and most of the time on those days, 2 or 3 people would show up. Nobody wanted to get punched in the face. There would probably be the 4 or 5 regular people at that sparring session, and that would be the assistant instructors and 1 or 2 people. That would pretty much be it. And so you would have really what would happen to me is I would just take a beating from the senior students. Every once in a while, the new guy would show up, and I would get to spar with them, and sometimes I would get my licks in then, but for the most part, it was a beating, and that was fine. You learn a lot that way. Um, Not so good on your teeth. So that was the JKD program. Uh, so non-traditional martial arts was all of that was considered. Now it's not considered because most JKD is pad heavy. Then you have your JKD group, which is a lot of jik chuk choi, a lot of low jab, high jab, kick, and then follow up with basic boxing strikes. That's very that's probably a major part of the JKD, Pak Sao, BLG Pak Sao, and then your karate style or JKD kicks, whatever you want to call it. The way I learned wasn't that way. We did not learn it that way. That's different than I came up. Probably for the first 25 years I did JKD. Now, the important thing that I want to talk about here is none of that. I just am establishing that background. The important thing here is traditional martial arts versus non-traditional, or MMA type of training versus traditional martial arts. Well, traditional martial arts can be taught in a way that makes it difficult to use that because it's abstract and there's no sparring. Non-traditional martial arts like MMA, there's potentially, depending on where you go, there's a lot of pad work and there's a lot of grappling on the ground. There's a lot of sparring. Again, depending on where you go, I don't go to MMA schools and spy on them or watch. From what I hear, this is also MMA schools now. A lot of them are soccer mom schools, like a lot of Krav Maga schools. Their target audience is for fitness and self-defense. Now, here's what I'm getting at, and I'll get to the point now. Traditional martial arts and MMA share something that I don't think people give traditional martial arts credit for. The repetition, particularly in Wing Chun, the forms training, it is significant to learning how to use your body and unify your body in order to fight. I'm going to tell this, and I don't like to tell stories about my experience. So I had been training, I want to say 18 months. We'll just say that. Could have been 9 or 10 or 12, 18 months. I had an experience where a rather large fellow who was angry with me seized a hold of me. And when he grabbed me, he intended to throw me into a trash heap, actually a construction dumpster. It was on a construction site, and we were tearing a roof off. So the debris would have been possibly severely painful, and maybe I would have gotten injured, possibly even have been fatal, depending on where I fell in this trash dumpster. It was 2 stories, so it was not a short fall. He grabbed me on a parapet wall, and we were standing. This thing's 6 inches wide, and he's going to throw me. And I did not do this, but it happened. I disengaged the grab. He grabbed both of my arms. He was a big, strong guy, biker. And I don't know how I did it, but essentially I disengaged and got him in an armbar and held him in an armbar looking down into that same trash heap. Now, he was shocked like hell because I was a skinny kid. I was probably, I don't know, 22, fresh out of the military. Real skinny I was, about 140 pounds. And he was looking into that dumpster and he had no idea what had happened to him. I didn't either, but I didn't tell him that. And he decided, hey, okay, I don't want to fight. And so that I attribute to training in Wing Chun forms. I attribute it to that. And later that caused me that and a few other experiences that real time, real life, where that same or similar kind of thing had happened. And I named my first martial arts academy Wu Shin Kun Academy because of those experiences. And what had happened is, well, what that means is fighting without thought. And because these experiences had happened to me, I had essentially defeated the engagement without knowing what I had done. I didn't know how I did these things. Now, it didn't always go my way because there was another time where, in the same time period, I got in a fight with two brothers. I don't remember their names or what it was about. Probably I was talking about martial arts, and anyway, the guy got me in a bear hug, and this had happened to me 2 weeks prior. Guy came up. I was in a club with a girl, and a guy came up and grabbed me from behind. There's a heavy metal bar, and I turned it around on him. I don't know how I did it, but I got him and had him in a compromising position quickly. He was so shocked by that, he just backed off. I was happy with that because I had no idea what I did. Now, so this other time this happened, the fight did not go my way. I knew how to break a bear hug. I grabbed his thumb and I was working this loose when his brother picked up a pipe, PVC, real thick, heavy, bashed me in the head with it a couple times. That wasn't pleasant. I would consider that a loss, so it didn't always happen, but I knew something was going on that was important that I wasn't aware of. And so this whole point of this video, and I'm really long-winded, and I may just delete this, but I'll leave it up for a few days. If you train in traditional martial arts and you train consistently and regularly, you will get good. You will develop certain skills that you might not quickly account for, and these will be effective in self-defense in real life, real time, with a resisting opponent. All the crap that people say you need Krav Maga for or whatever, pressure test. You don't necessarily need that. It's good for you to figure out. It's good to train and spar and fight. You have to be careful or you'll end up with bad teeth. And that really sucks. I'm going to tell you that. Train traditional martial arts. Learn the forms, especially if you're a Wing Chun guy. Don't let somebody tell you Wing Chun without the forms is the equivalent of Wing Chun with the forms. I would rather see you, if you're studying Wing Chun with me, I'll judge you based on your forms far more than I will based on technique. That's no joke.